Hello guys, this is Jerry speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM React episode 371, and today I'll be reacting to Purple Tales podcast episode 21. Now, we're going to be reacting to this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Continuing our look now at the best in children's television. This morning, the new kid, or dinosaur on the block.
So the big purple reptile that kids can't resist.
The big purple
dinosaur.
Teaches about love and it just kind of like soothes the kids.
And always, there's that signature song.
And we're still teaching about love and soothing you. It's the Purple Tales podcast. I'm Nancy J. with the man who was Barney in the suit. 22 years, Carrie Stinson?
22 years.
What goes through your head when you really think about 22 years of your life in the suit?
God, just so many good memories. So many good memories. Singing and dancing across this country and seeing those kids and of course all these wonderful people that have been here.
Yep.
It's just the memories have been flowing as we've been doing this each week.
Was there ever a time that you can remember that you thought, maybe I should stop?
No, absolutely not. And as I jumped back in not too long ago, not even a hesitation. I still think I'm 22, and I absolutely, in my head at least.
And he still acts like it sometimes.
Possibly. And and so I love it. And that purple dinosaur gives me so much energy. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would suspect that these comments that we get from our fans
Yes.
also gives you a lot of energy.
They do, and I got one last night that just about put me to tears. It was such a beautiful story from Brian, talking about the love that he had of his grandmother, and Barney, and the Barney magic. He hears us talk about the Barney magic each week, and he lost his grandmother and was able to reconnect through Barney once again, and it was just such a beautiful story, and he just wanted to share that with us, and I just love. He said, I love hearing you guys and hearing how much you loved Barney, that it wasn't just a job, as you guys say each week. And it means a lot to them, and it means so much to me. I was calling people last night. I was telling everyone this wonderful story because it just touches my heart.
Did he watch Barney with his grandmother? Was that part of it?
Yeah, he was part of. It was part of that. And what happened is he went to the Universal. He lived in Orlando, and when he found the news, he just needed to get to Barney. And he and his girlfriend went to the show, and after the show, they do a meet and greet. So he got to meet Barney. He said one word, he lost it. And Barney sat there and hugged him for 15 minutes, and they had that moment, and Barney was there for him. And the amazing story is he's become friends now with the cast down there in Orlando.
Well,
and so,
obviously that Barney probably understood all the things that you did through the years.
well, that's
Terry.
exactly it. I think if you're part of this, you understand the power you have and the importance you have, and that once again, you're not an actor. You become that character, and there's an importance to that. And obviously, down at Universal, they understand that. It's such a beautiful thing. Made me feel so great that that's continuing.
What else? You've got some other comments.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, Michael W. I think we got a picture of Michael up here.
Wow.
So he was at Radio City Music Hall. He wanted to show us this. When you sell out a show at Radio City Music Hall, you get a glass-etched poster, and there it is.
Oh
Wow.
my God! And look, he has the tag on, so he's taking the tour. And what is that blue thing next to him?
I don't know
We're
what
not
the
going to
blue
go
thing.
there.
I have no idea what that is.
He didn't edit it out. That's a real picture. It's so cute. And so Barney is there
There's the
in
official
perpetuity.
poster. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Very, very. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that. I thought that was so cool. So I love it. The PTP fans keep sending us stories, keep sending us pictures. We love seeing this.
I was thinking PTP. Obviously, that stands for Purple Tales Podcast.
Yes.
But I was thinking maybe Pretty Terrific People.
Hey, all
Do you
right.
like that?
Yeah.
Those could be our fans.
I do like
I mean,
that. Yes.
Gaga has Little Monsters. I'll take Pretty Terrific People.
And we do. They are wonderful sending these. We get them all the time, and we just love it.
It's funny because we've talked to some of the kids. We've
Yes.
talked to some of the writers and the
Yes.
music and the dancers and the this and the actors and
Yeah.
so on. But we did have one director come
We
in.
did. We did.
We had O'Brien.
We did. And I've got a little clip
Okay.
to kind of preview who we got today here.
Okay.
I was just thinking, see that? Okay, and you're gonna be more like.
For our YouTube people, you'll have to check it out on YouTube.
That's right. Otherwise, you can see a man directing a child.
Yes, on the set.
Do you know what set that is? Do you...
I do. This was my set. This was
Aw.
the show I worked on.
That's so cute. Who?
Oh, that was cute. Yep.
Cute.
Yes, and the man you hear laughing is Fred Holmes. Fred Holmes was one of our longest directors. We have a very close relationship. He worked me hard, but always put together such a great product. And I just loved working with Fred, and I am so glad he's here today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How did that feel watching that video?
It brings back a lot of wonderful memories. Yeah.
Fred was really good with the kids and understanding and explaining, and what was happening there is that the kids need to hit an exact spot because the light was set for it, and if the kid missed it, they were in the dark. And so he would take them out on the set and actually show them and explain to them. He was really good with the kids, and that's really important because if he doesn't do that on rehearsal day, then they're breaking takes, and we're doing more takes when we've got hot lights and costumes and all those things. So
One of
he
the
did-
things we always emphasize when we put the kids through Barney Camp is that, you've got these actors in these costumes out there that are going through a lot of, it's very difficult to be in that costume for a long period of time. So we would try to get them to always make sure they knew their lines and make sure they knew their blocking, because we didn't want them messing up, because we didn't want them to have to be having to put up with those costumes for any length of time.
Well, first let's give a little background about Fred.
Absolutely.
I mean, I Googled, you Google him,
Uh-oh.
and you look at his website.
Don't believe any of it.
What popped up?
Well, the things that we can talk about,
You found my record, did you?
98 episodes of Barney and Friends
I
you
did.
directed, 53 home videos.
Yeah, and also wrote a bunch.
So, but apparently you're like one of the only ones who directed and wrote the
I'm
same.
the only one to have ever written and directed the same episode.
What was that?
I think it was called Little Red Rocking Hood. Do you remember that
remember
one?
it.
Yeah, that was
I
fun.
do.
Yeah, we did it kind of like an opera, and it was
Yes.
sort of fun.
I do remember that.
Which I'll explain more about that on Barney and Friends vlogs. I don't know when exactly it happened. We'll see what happens. Let's continue on.
Crazy.
Yeah, Fred had all these great ideas, and I, he would come to us and, hey, we want to try this and this and this and this, and you love that. You love that as an actor, being able to do new things and go new places, and Fred was really great about that.
Well, it was easy because, Kerry was up for anything, and I love this guy because, I have been in the business for over 40-something years, and I've worked with a lot of people, and the people you love to work with are the ones that they're like Kerry they're willing to try anything, and he was. I mean, he'd roller skate, he'd jump in a giant pool full of water,
Wow.
he'd do anything. So it was a real honor to have worked with him.
Well, and it's the same for me. I mean, Fred would push us, but you knew why. So if it was the day and it was hot, or it was the end and all that, but you knew what he was doing. You knew there was going to be this great product, and it was worth it. And so you could keep putting. He wasn't just doing it to make you tired. There was a reason what he was doing, and a different camera shot. I remember some shots you did with a mirror one time.
Yeah, I love toys. I love playing with the toys.
Let's go back though, before Barney, before Carrie.
Okay.
You were a film director still. I mean, even then you were
Oh.
directing and
Yeah.
in the business.
Yeah, I actually majored in film production in school, and then when I got out of school, I was an editor in TV commercials, and did that for a little while. Moved into directing from editing, and just got tired, burned out on doing commercials, and then started doing television documentaries, and I traveled all over the world for several years doing documentaries all over the world, and in some places that you don't want to go, as my wife says, the armpits of the world. And we just, almost crashed a few times in planes, and a few other things happened that were not good. So my wife said, it was time to come home and do something else for a living. And so I came back, and I was, I did a bunch of early back in the, I guess it would have been probably the late 70s, early 80s. I was directing some films for churches. There were little dramatic films, like 60 and 90-minute films for churches. Did a bunch of those. And then from that, I actually directed a feature film for Miramax that starred Lou Diamond Phillips. And then I did another one with Lou called for Lionsgate. Yeah, I did another one called for Lionsgate with Lou. And then a few years later, I directed a Bollywood film in India, so... Yeah, so I was directing that, and then I was doing a lot of television in between. Did Wishbone, which was owned by the same company that owned Barney.
Which I didn't realize he did Wishbone, because it's one of my childhood favorites. Continue on, Fred.
So, at the same time, I was doing films for a bunch of other organizations. I got to work with a bunch of famous people. I worked with a lot. If I could have done anything in my life, I would have been an astronaut, because that was what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I got to work with a lot of famous astronauts. I got to meet Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin with the 50th anniversaries going on.
Wow.
And I worked with Charlie Duke, who was on Apollo 16. He lived on the moon for 3 days, and he was amazing. Got to know Sally Ride, and we stayed good friends, who was the first female astronaut, and Gordo Cooper, who was a Mercury 7 guy. And so anyway, got to do that. And then also, worked with Magic Johnson and Chris Everett and, my goodness, Cal Ripken, a baseball player, and Joe Montana. So a lot of different people doing all these different programs. And one of my favorite things I did back in those days is I worked with Bob Ballard. I don't know if you remember who he is. Bob's the guy that found the Titanic. And he's at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute just across from Martha's Vineyard. And so I got to interview and work with Bob, and got to go down in the Alvin, the little submersible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so got to do that, and been to a couple of shuttle launches at Cape Kennedy, and so
and
a lot of fun stuff.
This big purple dinosaur came into your life.
Well, it's really interesting how that happened, because I was directing Wishbone, and as I said earlier, Wishbone was owned by the same company that does Barney, or did Barney. And Jim Raleigh called me up one day, and I'd known Jim for a lot of years. And
he was
the executive producer in those days.
And he directed a lot. Jim was a big part of Barney.
Jim was from almost the beginning.
Yes. So Barney was already a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. Yeah, it started in '92, I believe, on television. I think it's PBS.
It was been right there at '92.
So it'd been going for 3 years when I was called in '95, and he asked me if I would direct some shows for them, and my son Michael was too old. He kind of missed that generation, so I hadn't seen Barney. So he said, "Well, let me loan you some videos," and so I watched them, and I was blown away, because I had been doing a lot of children's programming through the years, and I have a real heart for doing things for kids, and I just loved the message of it. I loved that they were doing these. They were teaching, ethics and morals, and how to live in the world and be good people, and I just loved that message. So I said, sure, I'd love to do it, and 98 episodes later, I was still going.
So let's talk about your first day then. Do you remember that, coming onto the set and making it up?
Oh, yeah, I remember it exactly.
Had you gone to the set beforehand just to see?
Yeah, they'd had me out to visit, and I think, as I recall, the very first thing I did for them was actually a home video. And I think it was like counting. It was like we built this really cool set with numbers on the floor, and the kids had to do these counting exercises. And as I recall, that's the first thing I did. It was, there I am, hanging out with Monty.
There you are in this.
Wow. Okay. Pretty cool. Oh, man, this is pretty cool. And Fred Holmes and this cute girl. Okay.
that?
I love nonsense.
And we've got someone else we know at the
Oh,
top
there's
there.
Brian,
There's
yeah.
Brian Mack.
Oh,
Brian.
love
Wow.
Brian.
Yeah,
He's
Brian
been a
was
great
the director,
guest.
but he
Wow.
also AD'd
Yeah,
for
he was a
Fred.
friend.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, for you.
a lot. They were a team, really well-known
He,
team.
he talked a lot about you in his episode.
Oh,
yes.
he was absolutely wonderful to work with, and when he got his opportunity to direct, he was more than ready and prepared, and was one of our great directors. So
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when a director comes in, a director kind of wants to do his own thing with a product, I would think. So, was that? I mean, Barney was already a success.
well, and there was an issue with that when I came on board. Should I admit to this?
I think you can.
Okay,
Here, you
okay.
can. Everything.
All right.
It's a safe world.
Yes.
It's a safe
You
world.
can't. Well, and
That's
it's very. It's funny you say that. As you're saying that, Nancy, they all had different styles. Like I would get my head ready for each director each week when I knew who was, because they all had different styles. And so I'm interested to hear this because he definitely had a very interesting.
Yeah, the
way he
week
went
I
about
would direct, Carrie would take that week off.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of stretching and a lot of more water. Electrolytes.
Well, what happened is that, I came out of directing, I'd done some multi-camera stuff, but I came out of directing single camera film style, doing movies and TV shows that were single camera style. And Barney was a typical 3-camera, actually used 4, multi-camera television show. And then as a director, my background was that the director runs the show. You control the set, you communicate with the actors, you tell the camera people what to do, you control the set. Well, when I came on Barney, they'd been doing it a little differently. They had a performance director who was this wonderful woman named Penny Wilson, who I absolutely adored.
Miss Penny, we obviously talk about her a lot on PTP.
She deserves people talking about her.
Yeah.
She was wonderful. But the very first day I came on, I walked out on the set and I started talking to the actors and I started telling people what to do. And Penny walked over to me and she kind of whispered very sweetly, "Fred, that's my job." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's kind of, maybe we should have dinner after the show and I can explain how this works." So we did. And I told her, I said, "Well, I understand that and I respect that. But I said, I'm responsible for the end product. It's my job to make sure the episode works. And so if you don't mind, what I would prefer when I'm directing is that I'll direct the talent in terms of performance and in terms of blocking. But in terms of the dance thing, I mean, I can't dance. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's my wife. I cannot dance. But in terms of that, please take that over and handle that. But I need to handle everything else, not just handle the cameras." And so she very kindly did that. And over the years, actually, we then evolved to where we were doing that. So it changed.
Man, yeah.
What kind of a director was Fred, Gary?
Go ahead, lie.
He kept me on my toes all the time. He would come up with ideas. Can we try this? Not only on rehearsal, but on shoot days. So I love that aspect of it. I mean, when you've been doing it, I've been doing it for 15 years at this point. I love the challenge, because on a stage show, it's the same every night. I might add a kick here or there, but for the show's mostly the same. You have the same thing running. So the TV show, it was fun to be able to work with him and see where it goes, and especially on the videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did some fun videos together. Land of make believe.
Well, we talked
Wow.
about this, Nancy. Mr. Barnes, if you remember, guess who created Mr. Barnes?
So
Yeah.
you did that for Carrie.
Oh, yeah, because, he never got to be in front of the camera as Carrie. And so we'd talked about that prior to that many times. And so this opportunity came along and he was game. So it turned out really cool.
Nancy, it's one of my favorite stories because
Wow.
it doesn't matter if it's Barney or if it's Mr. Barnes. Fred's got he's telling his story. And so we're going through this.
And we're seeing the land of make
Yeah,
believe
we're
up
seeing
there.
the land of
Oh, look,
make-believe.
they-
Wow,
We've seen
okay.
They're, oh
Well,
my gosh.
This is on the set at Universal Studios
Okay.
in Florida, and it's the first scene. We're actually, not only is it the first scene of the video, but it's also the first scene we shot. And our executive producer, Randy Dalton at the time, came onto the set and saw me as Mr. Barnes and said, "What is he still doing? Is the mayor of Orlando was bringing the key to the city for Barney?"
For Barney.
And there's no Barney because Mr. Barnes is there because Fred.
They all blamed it on me.
Oh, well, it's funny because we just talked about Universal and how
Yes.
Barney is still doing that. But apparently you had tourists around
Yeah.
too that were watching you film.
Yeah, the issue with filming at Universal in Florida is that it was it began as a theme park, and then they allowed some people to come in and produce shows in their theme park. It's different in Universal in LA. It's totally different because Universal LA started as a production studio that then became a partially a theme park. So in LA, when I've shot in LA at Universal in LA many times, and the thing they do there is that once you're ready to start filming, they run the trams somewhere else. They keep people away from you. That's not true at Universal in
No,
Florida.
it's not.
They're all around you all the time. And I felt so bad for these guys because one of the good things about that studio is that they had like a road that ran around the park. So we would get everybody in golf carts, and we'd drive around into insertion points. And in those insertion points, they'd put us into the park, we'd shoot a scene, they'd pull us back out of the park, and we'd go around to the next place. But all the time that we were in that one spot, there were kids and people around us all the time. So Carrie and all the poor dinos had to stay in costume, and
Well,
it
not
was
only in costume, but you
hot.
can't break character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can't break character. So
And they were kids everywhere, and so he's trying to, do his job and do this video while kids are
Hugging and
running
waving
around.
and, yeah, doing-
Yeah.
Pulling on your tail, maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments, we were shooting in the Jurassic Park section of the studio, and which was rather interesting. We're shooting dinos in a Jurassic Park set.
Yeah, from the friendliest dinosaur
To the less friendly dinosaur. But if you recall from, I don't know if you ever saw the original
Oh,
Jurassic
yes.
Park. Well,
Oh,
you
yes.
remember the scene with the poor guy sitting there and the dinosaur bites him, Well, I'm sitting there and Kerry comes over and he goes, boy, he said, I am really hot. And so, and so we started visiting. And while we're visiting, I, of course, because it's so noisy, I would insert my head into the mouth, right?
So enough that
Yeah,
he can
so
hear.
I could hear him and we could talk.
Man.
Well, we carried on a conversation, and then I turned and started
And your
walking
head
away.
is in the mouth
I'm
of
inside the
Barney.
mouth,
Okay.
yeah. But then I turned, I said, okay, let's get ready to start
Not,
shooting again.
I mean, not in a way that everyone could see, but
Yeah.
some people from an angle could see what we
Could see,
what
which
we were
is-
trying to be as discreet as possible.
Yeah, which is like, here's my head and here's the giant mouth, right?
Man.
So as I'm walking away from talking to Kerry, one of our production assistants, I see him laughing, and I said, well, why are you laughing? And he goes, you realize that you're in Jurassic Park with your head in a dinosaur's mouth. You have just traumatized an entire generation of children.
Nowadays, somebody would have had that on video. I mean, they would have had
Yeah,
that.
it's a shame. I'd love to have the picture myself.
Oh my gosh.
A couple of weeks ago when we did the Q&A, and you asked me a question about what's the hardest thing I ever did, and I said performing in the sand, dancing in the sand.
Discovery Cove.
Discovery Cove. That was Fred.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a SeaWorld, right? It's a
Yeah, it's a
SeaWorld.
branch of SeaWorld. It's actually right across in Orlando. It's right across from the SeaWorld Park. They have a place called
Wow.
Discovery Cove, and you can swim with the dolphins, which we did, and you can do all kinds of fun
Barney
stuff.
didn't
I
swim.
was just gonna say,
Yeah,
I
'cause
don't
he
remember
was-
hearing
he
about
was-
He
that.
was
With
up,
the-
he
was-
wanted to, but we
Yeah,
wouldn't let him.
Dolphins, if that would have been
He
the
would have
case.
traumatized the dolphins. But we filmed we actually filmed at 3 different parks to do Land of Make Believe.
Yes.
That's why it was one of the reasons why it was so much fun. We filmed at Universal Studios, and then Universal has a sister park called Islands of Adventure. And
Wow.
we filmed there, and then we also filmed at Discovery Cove. So it was just, and we did so many trips down there to plan it and everything. And our producers, we were talking about, Carrie mentioned earlier about how we put a team together. Well, the team that I would work with is that I was the director, and then Brian Mack was my assistant director, and then Shelley Aubrey was my performance director.
Shelley.
Yeah, who I worked with.
Yes.
I love Shelley. And then Julie Hutchins was my producer. Well, when we did Land,
Julie Hutchings' husband is Joe Phillips.
yeah, who
was-
did the music.
who was
Wow.
here.
Oh my God! It's like you
Yeah.
guys.
We keep telling you it's a family. It's definitely a family.
Okay.
But we had this whole team together, and we would go and do all these fun things. But in planning that video, because they were spending more money than they'd ever spent on a video before. It was a huge project, and so we did like 3 or 4 trips down to Orlando, and we would go into Universal, and of course Universal gave us free reign in the parks. We go ride the rides, and we do all that stuff, and then occasionally work in between. But Joe Phillips came down with us, and we did. Steve White came with us to help write the script, and it was just we had a great
Still.
time.
The hard part was, though, as I recall, so when you had a scene in a specific place in one of the parks, you had to finish that. Like, it was booked for that day. So if we were in Jurassic
You
Park,
couldn't pick up.
we
shot.
couldn't
there was
come
no
back.
coming back. So
Yeah.
you had to keep going until you finished it, because we had to be done with Jurassic Park on that experience. It was all timed out, scheduled out. So that was the challenge of it. If it was 100 degrees, it didn't matter. We had to push through.
Well, one of the good things that that I was very pleased about, that Linda Houston, who was our supervising producer and was great to work with, and she recognized early on that it was very important for us to be very organized going in for those very reasons that Carrie mentioned. And so I went down, I think almost a week early, and I worked with my AD department, which I had a very large AD department because we were having tons of extras and doing all kinds. You remember when we did the driving around in the car?
In the
you guys
bus,
see?
in that bus, yes.
Yeah.
And so we were doing all these huge numbers in a theme park. So I went down a week early, and I literally went through several times. I went through the entire schedule with the AD department so they could stay ahead of us. So when we were shooting on one set, the AD department was prepping the next set. So all we would do is get in our golf carts, go around the park, be inserted into another part of the park, and the AD department would have all the extras would be in place and know what they were supposed to do. All the vehicles, everything was there, and we just step in and shoot our scene and then pull out and go to the next one.
It's funny because I've heard directors say, I don't want to work with kids and animals at the same time, and yet you did this for many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that with the birds?
Oh yeah.
It had kids and birds and dinosaurs.
I mean,
And dogs, and you name it, boy, I'll tell you. Yeah, and I came out of Wishbone, which we worked with, of course, animals on Wishbone. But I've been doing children's programming almost from the very beginning of my career. And I love kids. I love working with kids. They're so innocent, and they don't have any artifices. They are what they are, and they were just, there I am talking to big guy. We're doing a little blues.
Wow, okay. Pretty cool enough with this Barney dude, so. And these two adorable kids, man. Well, this is Bruce Green. Okay, that's cool. Continue on.
Green shot, pretending we're flying in a balloon over the earth.
my
And that's Deborah Cole, who was one of my favorite kids. And who's the boy? Can't tell.
we will find him.
Yeah, okay.
We will find him.
Yeah, he's making a face, so it's hard to tell.
Well, and this is Bob LaValle, right? Would have this been one of his balloons? One of his?
Yeah. I'll tell you, the art department on Barney was hands down best art department I ever worked with.
Yeah.
On this side, watching it and not being behind the scenes or being part of the production, you make it look so easy. I mean, it looks very simple on TV. I mean, it's just like, oh, here you are on a set. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Well, I always tell people that it took a lot of work to make it look that simple. It was like producing a musical a week. I mean, if you think about it, we had musical numbers, we had choreography, we had dialogue that had to be learned, you had blocking that had to be learned, you had these guys in these big dinosaur costumes who could barely see the little tiny kids next to them, and the kids are all dancing around them. And every week we
think
turned
about
it
it,
out.
you got voices in the other room.
That's right.
So you have
was
to
huge.
sync between the two, with
And
us.
4 cameras. We had 3 cameras moving around. We had a Cam 8, which is a camera on a big arm that swings around, does music video kinds of moves, and was run by a guy named Van, who was wonderful. And we had just the thing that, in terms of the technical side of the thing, I think that saved us more than anything else is the producers very wisely hired camera guys that were shooting sports. And these guys were doing the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers. And so because they were sports shooters, they knew how to chase the action. Oh, we had some great guys. We had Lars and Bouvet. And
Well, I
it's
think
really good.
Bouvet was
Oh, look, here's the
yeah.
camera right there. Is that one of the guys then, huh?
There's Harold.
Yeah.
Wow,
Harold,
okay.
Harold, wonderful guy.
That's Harold. Going, Fred, what are you doing next?
That's me running away before he catches
Look at
me.
his arms crossed like that. That's
Harold,
great.
I saw Harold do this look a lot.
Oh yeah, and that look is, you want me to do what?
That's a great picture. Well, what is this Barney Camp? I know you've mentioned this before. What was
Yeah.
Barney Camp?
It was a way for the kids to practice doing an episode before they actually had to go do an episode. We'd actually bring on a script from an old episode, so they would learn lines, and we would teach them the blocking, and all those kinds of things. And the very first day, we did it just like we'd do an episode. So the first day we'd come in, we'd do a table read, and we'd teach them about how to interpret scripts and how to interpret dialogue, and then we'd get out on the set and we'd start teaching them about, kind of like you saw with me and Monty, teaching about where light, how to find their light, find their camera, and how to play to your camera, because you had 3 cameras in front of you and you never knew which camera was going to be your camera, so how to open out to your camera and those kind of things.
And
one
the,
of
the dance part of it for the kids, because this is where it could get dangerous.
Still.
If they didn't follow their choreography, because we're following our choreography. So if you go somewhere you're not supposed to, you could get run over from a dinosaur, because
Yeah.
we can't see them, especially with Barney. They could be under here, I can't see them. And if they went somewhere they weren't supposed to. So they
very
were
first-
prepared on
Wow.
all of that, and they were actually able to get in this. We put them all in the costume.
Yeah.
So they could
The
get
kids
every
got
one
in
of
the
them.
costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they
every
could
one
see
of
what
them
he was
did.
dealing
So
with,
see
yeah.
what we were dealing with and understand what we were dealing with,
And the very-
and feel what it was like to get hit by not hard, but a tail to get whacked by a
We didn't
tail or
tell you about all the
something.
kids we had buried in the back of the studio.
Wow.
Yeah,
We don't talk about that,
No, we
Fred.
don't talk about it. I'll tell you.
BTV, we don't talk
Can we
about the
erase that
BTV.
part? Okay.
Yes.
One of the very first things I told the kids when we went into Barney Camp, and of course I did it facetiously, but I said, don't get killed. And the reason I would tell them this is because you've got guys inside these costumes who are basically looking at the world through a mail slot. And you've got these little 3-foot tall kids next to them. There's no way for them to be able to tell where the kids are. And so when we would do blocking, one of the things that we would emphasize to them is that if I'm going to have you exit the caboose door and come down the steps, you need to go all the way to the bottom and finish your action. Don't ever stop, because Carrie's going to be coming behind you, and
Full speed.
if you at full speed, and if you stop, he will kill you. So of course the kids are all like terrified, so they would stay away from him, but they never got hurt. We never ever hurt a kid. But poor Carrie, I saw him take some dives that I don't know how he survived.
Right now, Mom, don't watch this one, Mom.
Well, you got to understand, you've never seen inside that costume.
No.
It's got all this mechanics, and there's a communication system and a kind of a air conditioning, but it's got all this metal frame and things. And poor Carrie's like a BB in a barrel. He's bouncing around inside that thing every time
I
he
like
falls.
that. I
Yeah.
like that description.
Man.
Oh my
And I felt
goodness.
so
Well,
sorry for him.
and you see how big that set was.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of times, Fred would say, I'd be at the caboose and I've got to end up to do that because Barney's got
Oh.
small.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go. That's,
see how
see
big
how
that
big it
set
is.
is.
Yeah.
I'd have to be in a full sprint. Well, he doesn't have air brakes.
Yeah.
He doesn't just stop.
He's like a train.
Wow.
Yeah, so when he goes, it goes. And then
Yeah.
so they would need to know that. If they darted in front of me or something. And the little dinos too. I mean, BJ'd be moving.
Yeah.
But you got to know those kids pretty well then, didn't you?
I tell you, and that, again, like when I started in this business, one of the real blessings I had is I got to work with kids. And even today, a lot of the kids that we had that were on the show have gone on and done some pretty amazing things. Like, in fact, I've made myself a cheat sheet.
Well, obviously
Okay.
we know about Selena and Demi.
Okay.
Yeah, and that and they've done some really cool things. I'm really proud of them. But there's a lot of other kids that have done some great things too. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just
Please.
mention Justice Dayon, who is on Hamilton on Broadway.
That's huge.
Very cool. When I knew her name was Erica Rhodes. Her name now is Daniel Coe, and she was nominated for an Emmy in 2015. She's a big famous actress in Hollywood. And Emilio Mazur, who was one of my favorite kids, he wanted to be a director, so he
Yeah.
would shadow me. He actually asked permission if he could, when it wasn't his episode, could he hang around and ask me questions and watch what I did. And so he did that on a couple
And
episodes.
he's become a big fan of this show. He's contacted me a couple times. He loves hearing the stories.
Well, and he went
Wow.
on. He worked for Henson. He worked for Morgan Creek. He's in L.A. and he's going to be a famous director. Monse Hernandez, who you've seen in the clips, she's done a bunch of things in TV. Madison Pettis has done a bunch of TV shows. And then we've got some singers. Hannah Owens is a very popular singer. Lacey Cavalier is an up-and-coming singer in Nashville. Victoria Lennox, remember Vicky? I love Victoria.
I talked to Victoria.
Yeah.
And Hannah's going to be on Purple Tails here soon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So
And
just talk to her.
Victoria works for Variety in Hollywood, and Monet and Marie Chandler, who are doing acting and singing, and
Wow.
Karina Conte, who was one of our kids on Land of Make Believe, is now doing modeling and acting. But I have to say that, I'm very proud of all those kids, but I am just as proud of the kids who became great moms and dads and nurses and doctors and school teachers, and we've got tons of those.
Fred, that can't be. Fred, it can't be moms and dads. It can't be that.
Who've got kids old enough to be in Barney. It's shocking.
Exactly.
But Michaela Crawford, who works with senior citizens, and Reese and Molly Wilson are doing great things. Kelly Achenholtz, Lexi Tenelpel, Deborah Cole, Marisa Kurz, who came on the show.
You remember
Hunter Bacuna.
Hayden Tweedy, she's in
Hayden, yeah. Chase Gallatin, and who else am I missing? Oh, Zach Sosa and Angel Velasquez. All these kids have gone on and done really cool things, not necessarily in the entertainment business, but they've turned out to be excellent human beings. And I think, when I look back on my career, not just with Barney and Wishbone and all, but the thing I get the most gratification out of being a part of this career is that the kids that we've worked with actually moved on and did good things with their lives.
And you've kept up with some.
I'm friends with all those kids I just mentioned. So.
And you recently saw some of them? Was that?
Oh yeah. Actually, we have get-togethers every once in a while. In fact, we had a little get-together. This is. I guess I should tell this.
Oh, I love it because it's always like maybe or maybe not. Go.
Okay, we got together. We got a bunch of people. A bunch of the kids got together, and they invited me to come. And we're sitting around. We're talking. Of course, they're all telling tall tales from their standpoint of what it was like to be a child on the show. And one of the kids goes, "Okay, I don't remember which one of the directors it was, but one of you directors used to say there was a guy named Luigi in the back who would come out and break our legs if we did something wrong." And then, which one was it? And I went, "It was me." Yeah. I said, "I was just kidding." And they goes, realize I was going home at night. I was scared that Luigi was going to break my legs.
Yeah.
It worked.
The whole thing is that the Luigi from Mario Brothers, that was just all joked up. That's just me, of course. Continue on, Fred.
You got good performances out of it.
You mentioned one of the girls who was an Emmy winner. You too, Emmy winner, and then Barney was actually nominated for Emmys.
And I was nominated twice for Barney, and then for another show I directed was called In Search of the Heroes, which I did for a number of years. I won a couple Emmys for that. I did a show on Anne Frank, and these were 30-minute dramas that were played in syndication, and I got to work with Miep Gies, who hid Anne Frank and her family, and when they were captured by the Nazis, Miep found Anne's diary and hid it. And so when Anne's father, Otto, came back, Miep's the one who talked Otto into publishing the book. Otherwise, you would have never heard of the Diary of Anne Frank. And I got to work with Miep and got to know Miep and got to be good friends with her. I got to work with Charlie Duke, who was on Apollo 16, and and Charlie and I did one of those In Search of the Heroes together, and it was a really good show. And another one, and it was all designed for kids. It was targeted at kids, and so it was a fun show.
Congratulations!
Well, thank
that's
you. I
amazing.
appreciate that.
And Nancy, I'll tell you, this gentleman is very generous with his time too. We used to meet all the time, go to lunch. I would talk about my projects that I was working on after Barney, and video and photography, and he would always sit and listen and give advice and help. And I know you've done that with a lot of people, but he's always done that with me, and very appreciative of that.
You're very kind.
What did?
Well, and we had a wonderful Italian lunch too. So.
Yes,
Wait,
we
Italian?
Fair play. So
Wait a minute. I feel like there's all this stuff left on the table between you two.
Yeah. Well, those are stories we tell together, and yeah.
Yes.
What is your favorite Carrie story besides you putting your head in, his costume?
There's actually several. you guys were, I think when Shelley was on the show, she was talking about the one we did where Carrie jumped into the pool. And I actually directed that show. And I was told by the producers that, we weren't real sure how the costume was going to act because it's like a giant sponge, and they knew it would probably soak up the water, but, we needed to, and they said, so as soon as it's okay to call cut, you need to really call cut. So I'm standing there, and Carrie and I had been talking about it. He had a little trampoline, and he gets back a little ways and comes running, and he hits the trampoline, jumps up. And as he lands in the water, I told him, I said, make sure you land on your bottom because I want the water to splash out of the pool. Well, he landed on his feet, which didn't make as big a splash. But then he realized, uh-oh, and I saw him plop down. And of course, then the water goes splashing out. Well, then as soon as he does, he just sinks like a rock. And everybody turns to me and looks at me, and I'm standing there going, well, that's lunch.
They did that several times to me, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it. We'll see you after lunch.
They would play that trick on me. I'll tell one real quick, as it's in my head. Karen Barnes did this one time. We were doing a video in Frisco, Texas, with a carousel, with a merry-go-round. A carousel, a Ferris wheel. Sorry, Ferris wheel. I'm scared of heights.
I didn't know
Most
that.
people don't know that for that reason. So they got me in this thing, and I'm way up in the air, and they stop it. Lunch. And I'm to my wrangler, tell them to start this thing now, because when I get down, it's not going to go well.
Did you ever put the suit on?
Oh, yeah. When I first came on the show, I insisted on putting the suit on because I wanted to know what kind of issues he was having to deal with. So I put it on, and I had I had actually worked with there's a camera called a Steadicam. Are you familiar with a Steadicam?
Describe that.
A Steadicam, for those who don't know, is actually a rig that mounts on your shoulders, on the operator's shoulders, and the camera then sits in front of him, and it's gimbaled so that it floats, and it allows a camera operator to do really smooth running shots or all kinds of shots that you can't normally get. And so I had actually put one of those things on back in the past, and they said, try running with it. So I tried running with it, and it's like a train. Once you get going, it's real hard to stop. Well, when I put on the costume, the Barney costume, I did the same thing. I tried moving forward real fast to see what his issues were when he tried to stop. And that's when I started realizing one of the first things I needed to tell the kids is that very thing, that you have to understand that he can't start and stop on a dime, that you've got to stay out of his way. You're responsible to stay out of his way. But then it became a challenge because then the kids, what you don't want the kids is to look scared, and you don't want them to be going, be doing this at Barney the whole time, So you'd have to try to help them and block the actions so that they could be close to him, but far enough away to when he did his 360, his tail didn't knock him down or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough.
Yes.
Oh, it's
absolutely.
huge. I don't know how the kids did it. I mean, I couldn't have done it at their age.
And you're in the suit, and you don't really. I mean, how much did he know that what was going on around him?
A lot.
Yeah. Because we do rehearsals.
Okay.
And
I
we,
always tell people I have spidey senses. I use my ears and my eyes and everything. I mean, I really had to use those senses for that. And what we also knew is, as the dinosaur actors, we couldn't mess up a take. Because the kids are probably going to mess. They're kids.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that can happen is that one of the adults messes up a take and we got to do it again. Because they may go 3 or 4 takes, they miss, and we finally get a perfect one, and then a dinosaur messes something up. So we really had to know our blockings and our rehearsals and talk about these things.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we want to do is have Fred come over, Carrie.
One more time.
One more time. It was perfect until you messed up.
Yeah.
So.
Do you remember maybe a take that, like, over and over? Was there one thing that you remember having to do over and over and over and over?
Well, I do remember we did this really fun, I guess it's probably close to the end of the series, but we did this really fun open. I loved big, expansive opening shots that would introduce you to the characters and to the park. And we did this one episode where we had balloons, and the kids would remember that. And I wanted to do this, and they were doing this whole opening dance number with working with balloons, and I was doing these crane shots with a camera's craning around like MTV, like music videos, and it's doing all this very elaborate, and the choreography and the blocking was very intricate. And we shot that a few times.
When he says a few.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, quite.
Until their legs fell off. Yeah.
Those little Barney legs,
Yeah,
right?
little Barney legs.
You know, Fred, you were a success before Barney. Obviously, a success after Barney. You still are in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But what did Barney do? What did those years as the director of Barney do to your emotional state, your intellect?
You
I mean,
mean other than giving me gray hair?
there you go. The first honest answer. You know what I mean.
Well, the thing I always tell people is that anyone can make a living, but not everyone gets the opportunity to make a difference. And for 14 years on Barney, I got the opportunity to make a difference. And which started with the family on the set. It started with our kids. You know, we wanted those kids to be professionals and do a good job, but we wanted them to have a good time. And we wanted them, and it's worked out that way, that when they're adults, they're going to look back and be pleased that they did it and be happy and have great memories. But then even beyond that, you know, boy, how many ways do you get to make a living where millions of kids all over the world grow up watching something you created?
Still.
And that to me is just, you know, kids I'll never meet, I'll never know, but they grew up on shows that I got to write and direct, and that's cool.
You would have gotten the opportunity to see some of the Make-A-Wishes too, right?
Oh, I'll tell
They
you,
would bring them on the set, Make-A-Wishes on the set.
those were hard. Everybody would end up with tears in their eyes before it was over because, you know, there were great kids who loved Barney and in many cases didn't have long to live, and it was very, very difficult.
But you notice those kids were just happy.
They were.
We might have been dealing with things, but the kids understood. There's my friend.
Well, the thing
There's Baby Bob. There's BJ. There's Barney. And it would just be amazing to see these kids. I could see them, usually in wheelchairs. They'd be rolling them in, and they would get so excited. It's because the crew. Usually this was done around lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to stay.
Yeah.
People wanted to see that and be part of that.
And the funny one that happened one time is that, you know, the kids had been watching Barney on television when he's like this big on TV. Well, they come out on the set and they're all excited, expecting him to come out being this big. Well, he comes bounding out of the caboose and he's 7 feet tall, weighs 300 pounds. And one time that happened and the little kid goes and ran straight to their mother and wrapped her arms around Mom. Finally got relaxed.
You realize when you see things like that, as the actor, you know when to be big and when to be small. And so when you see that, you all of a sudden take the movements to smaller and give them time to ease up and move there.
And
a lot of times the cast kids would be there and they'd come to Barney. So if they saw the cast kids come to Barney, then they knew it was safe.
I didn't realize that you actually had the Make-A-Wish kids on the set.
Oh,
We talked
yeah.
about the
Sometimes they would
hospitals.
do it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, they would bring them in a limo, drive them there. They'd get to have lunch with us, and they'd give them a whole day.
And when they would come on the set, we would videotape them, so they got to go home with a videotape of their experience on Barney.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was wonderful, wonderful charity. We were
Well,
very
it
proud.
reminds you what you're doing on these long, hard days and going, and you see that. If that doesn't give you energy and make you go,
Yeah.
And it was
This is
such a
wonderful.
family. Such a family.
Oh, yeah.
Still.
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
Oh, well, you know, I did that Bollywood film. As soon as Barney wrapped, I directed a Bollywood film in India, and it was a real hoot. I got to work.
Music? That was a whole big musical thing.
Yeah,
too,
a lot
right?
of dancing.
Oh
You know,
my God.
Bollywood films.
Yes.
But I got to work with a guy named Prem Chopra who had done 400 Bollywood
I know
films.
that name.
And then Divya Dutta, who had won their version of an Academy Award. And they were wonderful people, had a great time doing that. And then came back from that and did, there's a guy that I've worked with for actually back in the early part of my career back in the 70s named Bruce Wilkinson, who had a ministry that I'd used to do a bunch of films for, a Christian ministry. And
Wow.
he had a new ministry that was in Africa, in South Africa. And so he asked me to come to South Africa and direct a bunch of those. And so I ended up going to South Africa 3 times and traveled all the way from Botswana to Cape Town and all around filming a bunch of animals and doing a bunch of really fun stuff. And
Wow.
then right now I'm looks like I'm going to be writing and directing a feature film on a book series from Tyndall House called Winnie and the Horse Gentler. And it's a series of 8 books, and I've been asked to write and direct a feature film on that. So we're working on that now and working on it.
What about writing and directing your books?
Yeah, well, and I did. You're so sweet to bring that up. I have actually written a novel in my spare time. I wrote a novel called The Ugly Teapot. And oh, there it is. And it's
Wow.
won a bunch of awards and
It's a
done really
lovely
well.
story.
I have never seen The Ugly Teapot. I'll do a book review about that soon. But for now, it's just Street Game in my book review time. Continue on.
And it's the story of a young girl who goes on an amazing adventure with a father she adores. But the difficult part is the father died a month before.
Wow.
And so the story is about how she comes to terms with the death of her father. But it's not sad. It's actually very fun. The adventure is very fun and very exciting, and there's a lot of humor in it and everything else. But it has a really nice message for kids and how to deal with trauma and the loss of a parent.
Still dealing with kids.
Yeah, I still love
still
kids.
dealing with kids.
What age group is that for?
It's probably what we call probably I can't think of the term right now, but it's I would say probably 8 to about 12, somewhere in that age range. Yeah, it's not for really young kids. Yeah.
Would you do it again? The whole Barney thing? If
Oh.
somebody came and said, "Okay, we're got to put you back in the suit, and we got to put you back
Oh,
in
I
the
thought you were going
director's
to say
suit."
work with me again. He may
Oh,
say,
oh,
No.
I
need a new
I would work with I'd work with Carrie any day, anytime. I was talking to Brian Mack, and Brian, have went through the trenches together in turning out episodes, and I told him, I said, it's really strange. It doesn't feel like 10 years, and I feel like we could put this team together tomorrow. We could be shooting episodes, and I think we could.
There's
You know,
something
Fred-
special about
Fred, we
Barney.
talk about Barney Magic all the time.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? What does Barney Magic mean to you?
It means a love of kids.
Mhm.
The magic is, you think of magic as being something mysterious and untouchable, but this was very touchable, very tangible. The love you felt not just among the family on the set, but the love you felt that from the letters and cards. I'm getting cards and letters now from kids today from shows, and they know more about the show than I do. And
Still.
That is a very tangible expression of love. And so when you say what was the magic of Barney, the magic of Barney was unlike any other show ever created. It was a show about love for kids.
So you'll go back and direct Barney. Will you come back and chat with us again?
Oh, yeah.
Sometime?
Yeah, couldn't be back before tomorrow.
So Nancy, we've got we talk about each week, we have them sing. And Fred brought us this really great clip that we have to finish
To
up
finish
here.
us
Well,
out.
and this shows you.
Okay,
this shows
describe
you.
this.
So
if you
this
would.
is us doing I Love You in rehearsal.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
out of
gosh,
costumes.
Carrie, that's you without a costume.
That's right.
The one
So this
time.
is a rehearsal. There it is.
Oh my God, look, and there's
There's
everybody.
Kyle. Yes. So
Yeah.
This is huge.
This is when I.
We've never shown this before. This is something new.
Exclusive, and the
Exclusive.
fact that Carrie is letting us see him on the set without his costume
Very
is,
cool.
is because of you.
Oh,
Brett.
that's sweet.
So should we just show this and we'll bring this out?
Yes, we should.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes, please check this out so you can see Kyle making his moves here.
Well, and see Carrie is Carrie. Oh. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, Fred, thank you so much for bringing that. And of course, thank you to all of our.
And what? Carrie's running away
wait,
right now.
where's
trying
Carrie?
to hide. Yeah, watch.
Oh, wait, there's
Oh,
more.
he's gone. Look what happened.
So there's the
And now what we're seeing on the screen is Carrie has become the Barney
and
plush.
this is the doll that we've had here before.
And with, oh God, s'mores. You're getting ready to cook s'mores.
Wow.
That's the best.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that fun?
That is fabulous. I think that's going to make more people like us, subscribe, and share.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So thank you. Thank you, Fred
Thank you.
Holmes.
So
Carrie
great,
Stinson.
Fred. So
It's a real
great.
joy to be here. Just great to see you again, my friend.
Thank you. So good to see you.
And you're just glad I didn't make you sing and didn't make you sing. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to hear me sing. Trust me on that one.
So that was Purple Tales Podcast, episode 21. What do I think about this episode? It was awesome. Well, the ending. Oh my god. In rehearsal, it was successful. So far, I don't think this episode went to be successful, but I haven't seen the rehearsals of Barney Friends perform live. I'll check I'll have to see what's going on with BNF vlogs, and in the future, we'll see what happens. But until then, double episode for LJ Reacts episode, 371. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be the Pain Game Podcast, episode 61. Hope it's going to be much better than it was to episode 60 of Pain Game Podcast. But until next time, excuse me. So Jerry saying goodbye, peace out, baby. We get more to be as we guys very soon. But today, Jeff was saying out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I failed to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality, the one who gave the life that which is always happening, but I tried all the time.